Case Marker 10. The Coso Artifact. In February 1961, three rock collectors named Mike Mikesell, Wallace Lane, and Virginia Maxey were hunting for geodes near Atlanta, California. What Mikesell found that day looked like an ordinary nodule caked in fossil shells. But when he cut it open the next morning, his diamond saw blade was ruined, because inside wasn't crystal. Inside was what appeared to be a manufactured spark plug encased in hardened clay, surrounded by a hexagonal wooden sleeve that had petrified into something resembling porite. The claim that emerged was extraordinary. Based on the fossil shells covering the exterior, some analysts suggested the artifact could be 500,000 years old. A spark plug 500,000 years before the internal combustion engine, before modern humans even existed. Creationists seized on it as evidence against evolutionary timelines. Ancient astronaut theorists proposed it was proof of a lost technological civilization. The physical evidence, however, tells a more mundane story. In 1999, sparkplug collectors examined photographs and X-rays of the Coso artifact. They identified it as a 1920s champion spark plug, likely used in a Model T Ford or Model A engine. The so-called fossil shells were actually iron oxide concretions, rust formations that can develop around metal objects in certain soil conditions within decades, not millennia. The conspiracy angle persists because the original artifact has conveniently disappeared. Virginia Maxey reportedly wanted $25,000 for it in the 1960s, found no buyers, and its whereabouts since remain unknown. Without the object itself, definitive analysis is impossible. Some argue this disappearance is itself suspicious, evidence being suppressed. My take? A corroded spark plug isn't ancient technology. It's just rust doing what rust does, making the ordinary look mysterious when you don't understand the chemistry. Case number 9, the Antikythera Mechanism. In 1901, Greek sponge divers discovered a Roman shipwreck off the coast of Antikythera, a small island between Crete and the Peloponnese. Among the bronze statues and marble treasures lay an unassuming lump of corroded metal. It sat in a museum drawer for months before archaeologist Valerio Stais noticed something peculiar: a gear wheel embedded in the calcified mass. What emerged from that wreckage would baffle scientists for the next century. The Antikythera Mechanism, dated to approximately 100 BCE, is an analog computer. It contains at least 30 interlocking bronze gears of remarkable precision, designed to predict astronomical positions, eclipses, and even the timing of the ancient Olympic Games. The craftsmanship rivals 19th century clockwork. Nothing remotely comparable appears in the archaeological record for another 1,400 years. The evidence is undeniable. We have the object itself, now carefully reconstructed through X-ray tomography. Inscriptions in ancient Greek describe its functions. Modern replicas prove it works exactly as intended. This is no hoax. The question isn't whether it existed, but how. Mainstream archaeology explains it as the culmination of Greek mathematical and mechanical knowledge, perhaps built in a workshop associated with the astronomer Hipparchus or the mechanical tradition of Archimedes. The technology simply didn't survive the collapse of classical civilization. Knowledge lost to war, economic decline, and the burning of libraries. The conspiracy angle suggests the mechanism is too advanced, that it represents technology from an earlier, unknown civilization, or that similar devices existed but were deliberately suppressed. Some point to historical references of other automata, mechanical servants, self-moving statues, as evidence of lost capabilities. The Antikythera Mechanism isn't impossible. It's just a humbling reminder that ancient people were far more ingenious than we often assume, and that progress isn't always linear. Case number 8, the Dorchester Pot. In 1852, Scientific American published a brief but puzzling account. During blasting operations at Meeting House Hill in Dorchester, Massachusetts, workers reportedly discovered a bell-shaped metal vessel embedded in solid rock estimated to be at least 100,000 years old. The pot was described as 4.5 inches high, decorated with floral inlays of silver, and showing remarkable craftsmanship. The implications were staggering. Modern humans have existed for perhaps 300,000 years, but metalworking only emerged around 10,000 years ago. A decorated silver-inlaid vessel in Precambrian rock suggested either an unknown ancient civilization or serious problems with our understanding of geological time. The evidence, unfortunately, is almost entirely absent. No museum possesses the Dorchester Pot. No photographs exist. The original Scientific American article is barely a paragraph long and provides no follow-up investigation. We have nothing but a brief mention in a 19th century publication that frequently printed unverified curiosities alongside legitimate scientific news. The skeptical explanation is straightforward. The object, if it existed at all, was likely a Victorian-era candle holder or pipe stand that became mixed with debris during blasting. Explosions scatter materials in unpredictable ways. The solid rock encasing it may have been recent sediment misidentified by workers unfamiliar with geology. True believers counter that the scientific establishment has suppressed evidence of such out-of-place artifacts for over a century, protecting orthodox timelines from inconvenient discoveries. They point to the Dorchester Pot as one of dozens of similar cases, none of which have surviving physical evidence, which they interpret as proof of coordinated suppression rather than simple misidentification. A single paragraph from 1852 isn't evidence. It's an anecdote, and anecdotes aren't data. Case number 7, the Iron Pillar of Delhi. Standing in the Qutub complex of Delhi, India, is a pillar that shouldn't exist according to everything we know about iron metallurgy. The Iron Pillar of Delhi rises over 23 feet high, weighs approximately 6 tons, and has remained virtually rust-free for over 1,600 years. In a climate notorious for corroding metal within decades, this iron column has defied oxidation since the reign of Chandragupta II around 400 CE. The mystery isn't just its age, it's the metallurgical impossibility. Iron rusts. That's what iron does, especially in humid environments. Yet the Delhi pillar stands in open air, enduring monsoon after monsoon with only minor surface weathering. How did 4th century Indian metallurgists achieve what modern steel foundries struggle to replicate? The evidence has been extensively studied. In 2002, researchers at the Indian Institute of Technology Kanpur finally cracked the secret. The pillar contains unusually high phosphorus content, about 1% compared to modern steel 0.05%. This creates a thin layer of iron hydrogen phosphate on the surface that actually protects against further corrosion. It was accidental genius, a byproduct of the primitive smelting techniques using charcoal and specific iron ores, not deliberate engineering. Ancient astronaut theorists reject this explanation, arguing the pillar represents knowledge from a lost advanced civilization, possibly the same source as the Antikythera Mechanism. They note that the pillar was reportedly forged from a single piece of iron, an achievement requiring temperatures medieval forges couldn't consistently achieve. The conspiracy angle misses the point. The iron pillar isn't evidence of impossible technology. It's evidence that sometimes accidents produce perfection, and that our ancestors understood materials through generations of trial and error we can barely comprehend. Case number 6. The Maine Penny. In 1957, amateur archaeologist Guy Melgren was excavating a Native American settlement site at Nazca Point, Maine, when he discovered something that didn't belong. A small silver coin, heavily worn, about the size of a dime. It sat among stone tools and pottery fragments from the Penobscot people in a stratum dating to roughly 1200 CE, 300 years before Columbus. The coin was eventually identified as a Norwegian silver penny, minted during the reign of Olaf Kiri between 1065 and 1080 CE. If authentic and genuinely found in that archaeological context, it represents physical evidence of Norse contact with Native Americans, a connection previously known only through Icelandic sagas and the Alonso Meadows settlement in Newfoundland. The physical evidence is genuine. The coin itself is unquestionably real, examined and authenticated by the Maine State Museum and numismatic experts. It's a legitimate Norse artifact. The question is how it arrived at that site and whether its discovery context was legitimate. Skeptics have raised serious concerns. Melgren was not a professional archaeologist. His excavation methods weren't documented to modern standards. The site contained over 30,000 artifacts, but only this single anomalous object. Some researchers suggest the coin reached Maine through Native American trade networks that stretch thousands of miles, making it remarkable but not impossible. The conspiracy angle goes darker. Some accuse Melgren of planting the coin to validate the theory of Norse exploration he passionately believed in. Without rigorous documentation of its excavation, proving otherwise is impossible. The coin has become a Rorschach test. You see what you want to see. One genuine coin doesn't rewrite history, but it does raise questions worth asking. Case number 5. The London Hammer. In June 1936, Max Hahn and his wife Emma were walking along Red Creek near London, Texas, when they spotted a piece of wood protruding from a rock formation. Curious, they took the rock home. A decade later, their son broke it open and discovered a hammer, an iron hammer head with a wooden handle, partially encased in limestone nodule. The rock formation it came from dated to the Cretaceous period, roughly 100 million years ago. The claim is impossible to ignore. A manufactured iron tool with a carved wooden handle embedded in rock from the age of dinosaurs. Either human civilization is incomprehensibly older than every scientific discipline suggests, or something is very wrong with this story. The hammer itself has been examined. The metal is genuine iron of unusually high purity. The wooden handle shows partial coelite transformation, a process that takes significant time under specific conditions. The artifact is now housed at the Creation Evidence Museum in Glen Rose, Texas, displayed alongside dinosaur tracks and other items supposedly proving young Earth creationism. The skeptical explanation is less dramatic but more convincing. Limestone can form relatively quickly around objects in mineral-rich water. The hammer is consistent with 19th century American mining tools. It likely fell into a crevice, was covered by calcium carbide-rich sediment, and formed a nodule around itself within decades, not millions of years. The surrounding rock formation being old doesn't mean the encasement is old. True believers argue that professional geologists have refused to properly date the nodule because the results would be too controversial. They see suppression where scientists see a simple category error. Rocks can grow around objects. Ask any plumber about mineral deposits. The London hammer is old, it's just not ancient. Case number 4, the Shroud of Turin. It measures 14 feet 3 inches long and 3 feet 7 inches wide. It bears the faint image of a bearded man, front and back, complete with wounds consistent with Roman crucifixion, nail marks through the wrists, scourge marks across the back, punctures around the scalp consistent with a crown of thorns. The Shroud of Turin is either the burial cloth of Jesus Christ or the most elaborate hoax in religious history. The shroud's documented history begins in 1354, when French knight Geoffroy de Charny displayed it in Lire, France. The Vatican has never officially declared it authentic or fake, maintaining a careful ambiguity that preserves both faith and plausible deniability. The physical evidence is contradictory. In 1988, radiocarbon dating by 3 independent laboratories placed the linen's origin between 1260 and 1390 CE, squarely medieval. Case closed, seemingly. But defenders note the sample was taken from a corner that may have been rewoven after fire damage in 1532. They point to pollen grains from plants native to Jerusalem and a weave pattern consistent with first-century Jewish burial practices. The image itself defies easy explanation. It's not painted. There's no pigment penetration into the fibers. It's not a photograph. The technology didn't exist. Some researchers describe it as a scorch, as if intense radiation briefly burned the image into the cloth. No one has successfully replicated it using medieval techniques. The conspiracy angle cuts both ways. Believers accuse the Vatican of downplaying evidence to avoid controversy. Skeptics suggest the Church deliberately maintains mystery to preserve the relic's pilgrimage value. I've examined a lot of evidence in my years. This one, I genuinely don't know, and that's rare. Case number 3, the Voynich manuscript. Yale University's Benecca Rare Book Library houses a 240-page volume that has humiliated the world's best codebreakers for over a century. The Voynich manuscript, named for Polish book dealer Wilfrid Voynich, who acquired it in 1912, is written in an unknown alphabet that forms an unknown language. Its pages feature bizarre illustrations, plants that don't exist, astronomical diagrams that don't match any known system, and naked women bathing in elaborate plumbing networks. Radiocarbon dating places the vellum's creation between 1404 and 1438. This is a genuinely medieval document. But what is it? The physical evidence rules out obvious explanations. Statistical analysis of the text shows patterns consistent with a natural language. Word length distributions, letter frequencies, repetition structures. It's not random, but it's also not any known language or cipher. World War II codebreakers who cracked German and Japanese encryption failed completely. Modern computer analysis has failed. Artificial intelligence has failed. Some researchers propose it's a medieval hoax, an elaborate con to sell a mysterious book to wealthy collectors. Others suggest it's written in an extinct language or a constructed language for esoteric purposes. In 2019, one linguist claimed it was written in Proto-Romance shorthand, describing herbal medicine and bathing rituals. His analysis was widely criticized. The conspiracy angle suggests the manuscript contains forbidden knowledge, perhaps alchemical secrets, Perhaps something stranger. Its apparent provenance connects it to Rudolf II, Holy Roman Emperor and obsessive collector of curiosities, who allegedly purchased it for 600 gold ducats. 600 years. Countless experts. Still no translation. Either it's the greatest hoax in literary history, or it's a genuine mystery we haven't solved. Both possibilities are disturbing in their own way. Case number 2. The Piri Reis map. In 1929, German theologian Gustav Deismann was cataloging items at Istanbul's Topkapi Palace when he discovered a fragment of gazelle skin parchment bearing an extraordinary map. Dated 1513 and signed by Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis, the map accurately depicts the western coast of Africa, the eastern coast of South America, and, most controversially, what appears to be the northern coastline of Antarctica. The problem is simple. Antarctica wasn't discovered until 1820. Its coastline wasn't mapped until the 20th century. And the land shown on the Piri Reis map isn't Antarctica as we know it. It shows the coastline beneath the ice sheet, geography that has been buried for at least 6,000 years. The physical evidence is genuine. The map exists. Its age is confirmed. Piri Reis himself wrote notes explaining he compiled it from approximately 20 older source maps, including one supposedly used by Christopher Columbus. The Turkish admiral was a respected cartographer, not a fantasist. Mainstream geographers argue the southern landmass isn't Antarctica at all. It's South America, bent eastward to fit the parchment's edge. Medieval cartographers routinely distorted geography for practical reasons. The apparent accuracy of the African coast simply reflects Portuguese exploration that reached the Cape by 1488. Ancient astronaut theorists see something else entirely. They propose Piri Reis had access to maps from a pre-Ice Age civilization, or that aerial surveys were conducted by unknown means thousands of years ago. Charles Hapgood's 1966 book, Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings, brought this theory mainstream, even earning a favorable foreword from Albert Einstein. I've studied this map for longer than I'd like to admit. The Antarctica theory requires too many assumptions. But those source maps Piri Reis mentioned? Those I'd like to see. Case number 1. The Nazca lines. They stretch across 500 square kilometers of Peruvian desert. Geometric shapes, spirals, and massive representations of animals carved into the earth itself. A hummingbird spanning 300 feet, a spider measuring over 150 feet, a monkey with an impossibly spiraling tail. The Nazca lines can only be fully appreciated from the air, from altitudes their creators supposedly couldn't reach. They've survived for nearly 2,000 years because this is one of the driest places on Earth, where rain falls perhaps 20 minutes per year. The Nazca culture created these geoglyphs between 500 BCE and 500 CE, removing reddish surface stones to expose the lighter ground beneath. The lines themselves are undeniably real. You can fly over them today, as thousands of tourists do annually. The question isn't whether they exist, but why. Archaeological evidence suggests ritual purposes. The lines often connect to water sources. Some align with astronomical events, solstices, star positions. The Nazca may have walked these lines in ceremonial processions, creating sacred pathways visible to their gods above. Small-scale models found in the desert show planning techniques that could theoretically scale up using simple tools and mathematics. In 1968, Erich von Däniken's Chariots of the Gods proposed the radical alternative. These were landing strips and signals for extraterrestrial visitors. The theory captured public imagination because it offered an explanation for the aerial perspective problem. Why create art you can't see unless someone was watching from above? Peruvian researchers countered that surrounding hillsides provide partial views. The creators didn't need to see the completed images. They needed the gods to see them. Similar logic explains medieval cathedral architecture, built to impress a deity, not tourists. The Nazca lines aren't impossible. They're just ambitious. Humanity showing off for forces greater than themselves. Whether those forces were divine, extraterrestrial, or simply imagined is a question archaeology alone cannot answer. Some mysteries aren't about impossibility, they're about faith.